I swear.
Ali? Ali? Assalamu alaikum. Are you going to start this broadcast or? This is on purpose, like this?
I'm assuming it does.
Because it doesn't reach over there.
Assalamu alaikum. Did you set up the English live already? Okay, I don't need to do anything here, right? Okay. You said it's live.
It's live?
Yeah. This goes to the live stream.
Yes. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I'd like to request Sayyid Ali Razvi to begin the proceedings with the recitation of Holy Quran. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بتغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها صدق الله العلي العظيم.
And now, without further ado, our respected speaker, Dr. Hassanain Walji, please welcome him with the loudest of salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والحمد لله الذي جعلني من أمتي سيد المرسلين خاتم النبيين طه وياسين أحمد محمود أبو القاسم محمد ومن المحبين عترة الطاهرين أما بعد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وجعلناهم أئمة يدعون إلى النار ويوم القيامة لا ينصرون. صلوات. We need to continue with the theme of unlocking our potential. Tonight, I will try and wrap up the discussion in terms of personal development, and tomorrow, inshallah, we will talk about society development. Because unless individuals develop within a society cannot progress. At the same time, if one doesn't belong to a society that is progressive, it is hard for one to progress on one's own. And that is a relationship between an individual and a society. An individual has rights upon the society, and society has rights upon the individual. And inshallah, we will talk more about those rights and responsibilities as we think in terms of how societies which are based on faith, societies and communities which follow the path of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam need to be and how they can progress. Today the subject is choice of leadership. The ayah that I began with gives us a pointer, and I will refer to it, but it is all about leadership, that there are leaders who can lead you on the right path, and there are leaders who can take you on the wrong path. The choice of leadership is up to us, and we talked about the idea of critical thinking and making an informed choice. As you will recall, that every choice that we make has got to be one that is going to take us on a path of progress. I want to share a conversation between two people, two characters, as Imam Hussain alayhi salam was moving towards Karbala. We had the messenger who had come from Ubaidullah, and he meets one of the companions. This is the messenger. This is the one who follows Yazid as a leader. And he meets Imam Hussein's companion, Ibn al-Muhajir al-Kindi, who was with Imam. And he asked Imam alayhi salam to stop where he did upon the orders of Ubaidullah. And al-Muhajir al-Kindi challenged him with this verse of the Quran, because he said, "Why are you doing this?" And Ubaidullah's messenger said, "I am following the orders of my leader. I have been asked to do this. I am following the orders of my leader." And Al-Kindi says that you have been disobedient to your Lord and have obeyed your Imam in bringing about the destruction of your soul. He chose Yazid to be his leader. And Al-Kindi goes on to say that you have acquired eternal shame for yourself and the punishment of hellfire. What a wicked Imam your Imam is indeed. Clear choice that was being given. And then he quotes this ayah of the Holy Quran to say that you have been disobedient to your Lord and have obeyed your Imam in bringing about destruction to your soul. Once again to remind him that these were not his words, but they were the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran. Well, every step, if we were to study and analyze, and as I said yesterday, we only look at the day of Ashur. We talk about for 10 days, we talk about the stories and the tragedy of Karbala in terms of the Shuhada, and so we should. But there is a history before Karbala. The 50 plus years of Imam Hussain alayhi salam and beyond. These things need to be studied, because you will find that even in the travel from Medina to Makkah to Karbala, every step of the way there is a lesson to be learned. And inshallah on the night of Ashur, we will share 10 lessons, specific lessons that we learn from Karbala. Tonight, I would like to say that Karbala is a microcosm of the entire faith. It is a Quran in action. That we learn some great lessons of Islamic principles. We learn from Imam Hussain alayhi salam and the Shuhada of the highest of ideals. The martyrdom is the highest of the ideals. A martyr is like a candle who kills himself but gives light to the rest of the world. This is the highest ideal that could be lived. As I said, Karbala is Quran in action. Every value that we are taught in the Holy Quran is present in Karbala. Indeed, beyond the actual actions, it's also a profound tafsir of the Quran, if only we were to reflect. And for us, particularly the followers of the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, this is a defining event for us. It holds a deep meaning for us. It has a direct impact on our morality, on our character. An event that clearly tells us the path between good and evil, between right and wrong. It could not be more crystal clear in terms of what we learn from them. It also gives us, and which is our subject tonight, a definition of leadership. Because this is all about leadership. And at the same time, we will also have a definition of a very cardinal principle of leadership, which will be the focus of the discussion. But what we had in Karbala was a principled leadership. What do I mean by that? It was a leadership of courage in the face of thousands of enemies. What is right, numbers do not matter. You may be in a minority. If you are on the right path, numbers do not matter. This is what Badr taught us. And it's something that Karbala teaches us, courage. And then there was a spirit of saying that for the truth, I will sacrifice myself. If it means giving my life, it means giving the life of my child. If it means giving the life of my brother, we will all give our lives. And there are many revolutions where people have stood and said we are on the right path, we have a struggle. In fact, every night after I finish from here, we have another session on Zoom that takes place on Islamic City, a national web channel where we talk about one marginalized community in the world every night in the spirit of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. For example, tonight after this session, we're going to be talking about the rights of the Palestinians. A few nights ago, we talked about the rights of the Dalits in India, for example, and so on and so forth. We'll be talking about the people in Myanmar, for example, or the oppressed people in China. The point is that there are people who stand up and give their lives. And there are marginalized people where if they do not have people who will stand up to them, just as what we had in South Africa, for example, Mandela and others were willing to give their life in order to bring about change. And nothing happens without a sacrifice. Well, Karbala was that supreme sacrifice which has no match in the history of humanity. And then Karbala also taught us the idea of a principled leadership and of righteousness. And inshallah we will talk about righteousness in the next day or so, about righteousness and self-righteousness. And Karbala was, of course, a leadership of integrity. And that is our subject today. Because real battles truly are not fought on the ground. On the ground, apparently Yazid may seem to have won. But the real battle of the mind was won by Imam Hussain alayhi salam. The battle of ideology was won by Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And until today, we only remember Yazid as an enemy. Nobody speaks well of Yazid. Yazid lost the battle of the hearts and minds, and Imam Hussain alayhi salam won the battle of hearts and minds. So what is integrity then? Integrity is choosing your thoughts and actions based on values rather than personal gain. Sense of sacrifice cannot come unless you have integrity, unless you have leadership which has got integrity. So tonight we'll talk about integrity, emotional awareness, and ethical mindfulness. These are big words. But friends, if this platform is not to radiate the true teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, deep and profound as they may be, then we have shortchanged this platform of Hussaini University. We come here with an expectation that we will learn something that will help us transform our lives. It will help us transform the societies that we live in. And therefore, please, I crave your attention. Some of the subjects that I try to present are hard. They need some reflection. They need some pondering. But without hard work, nothing is achieved. This is not, to me, a platform of entertainment. This is a platform of education. This is a platform of transformation. So bear with me sometimes if the going gets a little heavy. But to lighten it up, I will tell you a story. A very successful businessman was growing old, and he knew that it was some time to now choose a successor. The CEO wanted to choose a successor in his team. And he wanted to choose a real successor who he could rely on. So what he did was, he called everybody and said that I'm giving you a seed. Take this seed, grow the seed, and whoever brings me the best grown plant from this seed or a tree will become the CEO of this company. There are some old legends where the king was trying to have a successor. The story is the same. We make it relevant to the corporate world that we live in. After about 8 to 9 months, he calls everybody back and says, bring your plants so I can see who has the best plant so that we can choose the CEO. Now there was one person who really was very dismayed on that day, because his seed did not grow. Whatever he tried, he put fertilizer in it. Everything that he tried, the seed would not grow. So he comes back dismayed. with nothing in his hands because the seed did not grow. Everyone else, about 20 or 30 of them who were potential candidates, came with beautiful blossoming plants, each better than the other. And the CEO looks at all of them, looks at the plants, looks at the man right at the back. We will call him Ali for the moment. He's sitting there right at the end, totally dismayed, and had nothing to say for himself. And the CEO says, Ali, stand up. You are our next CEO. And he was completely puzzled to say, what happened? And the boss explained that the seeds that I gave all of you were boiled seeds. They would never have grown. They would never have grown. Each one of you have cheated by bringing in this plant because you could never have grown anything. There is only one man who is honest enough to actually have come with the reality of the result, and he is fit to be a CEO. This is the meaning of integrity, that you do something in private or you do something in public, it remains exactly the same. This is an example of true integrity shown by a human being saying, I was given a task to do, it did not happen. I am not going to do something where the means justify the end, that I go and grow a false plant and bring it to try and win favor. This is a life lesson for us. In terms of integrity, sometimes you may feel left out. The idea is that if you have integrity, you will stay the path. And this is something that we need to understand. Well, I don't know, how many of you actually follow Robin Sharma. Somehow I lost his book cover, which says, a leader without a title. I strongly recommend that amongst the many books that you read Robin Sharma's book, A Leader Without a Title, where he says that everyone can be a leader, everyone is a leader in their own place. And the single most important fact is that you have the power to show leadership wherever you are planted and play at the peak of what you do. If you are in a class, you are a leader as a teacher. If you're a student amongst other students, you're a leader of your pack if you're going to do something with integrity and that you will take it upon yourself. And therefore, there is no such thing as someone, who has been appointed or elected. Every one of us has a potential, and every one of us is a leader in our own right. The question is, in terms of integrity, who are you? Who are you? Would your co-workers, classmates, neighbors, family members, and friends all use the same word to describe you? I am moving towards integrity. If they all use the same word to describe you, you are what you are. In the old days, in the old computer days of DOS, some of you may not even have been born when DOS was born. They said what you see is what you get. Well, integrity is what you see is what you get. Because integrity is authenticity. It's not all things to all men or women. The word hypocrite comes from an ancient Greek culture. They used to have this place, and the actors, or the one actor who would play the entire scene with 3 or 4 different people, was called a hypocrite. They pretended to be different things, and what they would do is they would have a mask. You have seen that. They would wear one mask, take it out, wear another mask, and speak another line. This is how Greek plays used to be done. So that's where you get the word hypocrite, that when you wear masks so that you appear one way in front of some people, another way in front of others, it shows a lack of integrity and authenticity. In fact, that is where this word comes from. So, integrity is, in fact, compartmentalizing your life in such a way that, you have family life, there's some technical issue. I cannot show the pie that I have. I will read it regardless. Imagine there is a pie, and you have family life, you have your friends and your friends' life, you have your social life, you have your business life, you have your secret life, where people don't know your addiction, or people don't know what you might be doing in private. That's your secret life. And it doesn't always have to be bad, but you're a different person to different people. Well, integrity is that you must appear exactly the same, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, whether it's your social life. I'm not talking about the level of conversations. What I'm talking about is your nature, your integrity, your authenticity, the way you speak, the way you handle yourself. All these become part and parcel of your life. And therefore, integrity is not compartmentalizing your life so that you appear different to different people. I think now you can see the pie. Somehow the pie decided to come later, but that's what it is. Family life, friendship, social life, business life. And so you can see your life is a pie. You live in a society. But you cannot be a different person to different groups. That's the meaning of integrity. And we face these choices daily. Integrity happens when our commitments, our words, and our actions actually match. We uphold the principle of social justice espoused by Karbala. We do lamentations. We do matam in the memory of Sayyidul Shuhada. Yet, when it comes to action, maybe some of you are, but people like me do very little to stand up for justice in reality. Whether it's at the workplace, somebody is being bullied. Well, it's none of my business. I walk away. That's not standing up for social justice. That is not doing what I proclaim to when I beat my chest for Imam Hussain al-Islam. We preach unity and brotherhood, and yet we tend to get tangled in sectarian issues at the very first opportunity. Or the smallest of things. As I say, that sometimes as the Muslim Ummah, we tend to play the violin when the Titanic is sinking. The issues that we have in front of us, and yet we get entangled into the smaller issues. So, we've been talking about mental wellness, and the subject is the same. I have not deviated from the subject. Mental wellness is connected to your integrity. Because your integrity means that your head, that your heart, and your hands, meaning your mind, your emotions and your heart, and your actions must be in alignment for you to have peace of mind. And that is what we are looking for when we talk about mental wellness and mental health. And I will slowly go through this and try and finish as soon as I possibly can. So integrity is these three circles that I have: the head, the heart, and the hand, your actions. So integrity is to think with your mind, integrity is to feel, and integrity is to do. And all these three need to be in alignment. So we will talk about very quickly, how do we get there? So the green, the mind, is really to do with your ethical mindfulness, your defined values that you have. Emotional awareness is your heart and your relationships, the red part. And your behavior and your action consists of two elements: empathy and compassion. If you have this whole formula together, I said this at the outset, mental health issues, mental wellness is not a microwave approach. It's not that you're going to take a pill that's been given to you, or maybe go for 3 counsel sessions and you will have mental wellness. Mental wellness comes from within, and we need to ensure that we understand the protocols of mental wellness. Let's go to ethical mindedness first. You need to root yourself in a moral foundation. That is ethical mindfulness. Alhamdulillah, we have that level of religious integrity. The school of Al-Khoei Islamic Center teaches us those ethical standards. We live in wonderful communities like these all over the world. We have gatherings like this. Indeed, today it is wonderful to actually to see. They used to say at one time that the sun does not set on the British Empire. Some of you may have heard that because the British Empire was so big and they had colonized virtually every part of the world. Today it's a small little island and the sun hardly ever rises there. But today the sun does not set on the Azhar of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. It starts in New Zealand in the morning or in the evening. When it's morning here, every hour there is a majlis taking place. Every hour there is matam taking place until you get to Vancouver and beyond. You can see that the sun does not set on the Azhar of Abu Abdullah. We live in such a society. We live in such an internationally connected community of the Shias, for example. And there are these social mores. You walk into on this night, or you walk into any of the centers, the thousands of centers who do the Azhar of Abu Abdullah on the day of Ashur, you will see the exact same ritual taking place wherever you may go. This is the power of our social network. And this is a power where we can literally move this society in the right direction if only we were to grab the opportunity and say, yes, we have the social capital, not just to serve ourselves, but to take up social justice causes wherever we may be, whether they are Muslims or non-Muslims, or they may be people of no faith. If they are being persecuted, then we, as Hussainis, need to stand up for social justice and need to stand up for those people. What that requires is a little bit of critical thinking. And then, just again to lighten this a little, mindfulness is a state of being. Mindfulness is not a destination. It's being aware in the moment. A lot of people say, well, he's so good or she's so good at remembering names and faces. It's not about memory. If you are shaking someone's hand, you're looking into their eyes, you're looking at their face, and you're giving them 100% attention when you meet them, you're not likely to forget their name and face. But we shake their hands, our mind is somewhere else, we listen to their name, I'm thinking about 10 other things, I meet them 3 years later or maybe even 2 weeks later, I've forgotten their name. Because I was not present in the moment when I met that person. And this happens to all of us, that we tend to have so many things, the mind has a monkey in it and the monkey keeps jumping. So mindfulness is not a specific activity, it's a quality of the mind. And this famous thing where we say here, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is part of the mantra, the brand of the United States of America. Well, the pursuit of happiness is an oxymoron, in my opinion. You do not pursue happiness. Happiness is a state of being, not a destination. It does not need to be chased. If you are present in the moment, if you are content with what you have, and if you have thought this thing through, then you don't need to chase happiness. You are happy. You will remain happy. But it's a matter of mindset. And I have that picture there that you see for a reason. This is a picture of a fisherman. He was sitting, enjoying himself on the beach. And an entrepreneur passes by. And he said, what are you doing, lazing around? He said, look, I catch 3 fish a day. I sell them. I sell 2. I eat 1. And I'm happy. He said, but what if you were to spend some more time and catch 6 fish? So he said, what do I do with 6 fish? He said, well, you can sell 3 more and make some money. Oh, what will I do with that extra money that I earn? Well, you'll be able to buy a bigger boat. So you'll be able to get more fish. And he goes on and on and on. And finally he goes to a stage where he said, and he keeps asking, then what do I do with it? He said, well, you have a fleet of boats. He said, then what do I do with it? He said, then you'll have so much money that, you will be happy and you'll be able to relax on the beach. She said, what do you think I'm doing now? The whole idea is you keep running, pursuing happiness. It's not about running and pursuing happiness. I'm not saying that we do not progress. I'm not saying that we do not work hard. What I'm saying is that we cannot be mindlessly pushing agendas without thinking to say, where is this going to lead me? And then maybe when you're on your deathbed, somebody like Steve Jobs to say, what did I do and what am I taking with me? In fact, Alexander the Great had the entire world under his possession. He was clever enough, intelligent enough to tell the people that when I die, make sure that 2 of my arms are stretched out, empty hands are stretched out from my coffin to tell the world that what did Alexander take with him when he died. This is a part of integrity that we need to understand. And then we have emotional awareness. The next thing, which is your heart. Emotional awareness is how do you impact your relationships? And emotional awareness and ethical mindfulness actually are part of a 6-part course that I do elsewhere. This is just a brief summary of what we teach in those classes. That be mindful of your actions because they impact your relationship. What they say is psychodynamics. In terms of how people interact with each other, the psychology that comes into it, the psychodynamics of personality transformation actually begin at the level of emotional awareness. And those who are interested in the subject can Google as to how psychodynamics can lead to personality transformation. It's a fascinating subject if you're interested. And how is it that you can now turn your apathy into empathy, your selfishness into selflessness, and your self-centeredness into other-centeredness? But this is all to do with the idea of that awareness that I have. And once again, going through this, and you're more than welcome to have these slides. I will leave them here with the organizers so that you can go and follow some of these if you're truly interested, because sometimes one has to go through very fast and move through the presentation in order to complete this in time. So you have 2 mental states when you're talking about awareness and emotions. One of the mental states is your attitude, your emotion, your perspective, that lead us towards happiness and away from suffering. To actually be in that state, that's a beneficial mental state. And you also have a harmful mental state. The attitude within yourself, your mind is around distorting reality. It leads to problems for yourself and for others because of your prejudice, because of your hatred, because you have stereotyped somebody, because you have taken a wrong end of the stick when somebody says something positive to you, you took it in a wrong way and there is an issue. Well, one of the things that we learn with emotional awareness is that you become less reactive. Somebody says something to you, you don't immediately react. You pause. You take a deep breath. You process. You think about it. And then you react. Meaning that you have to provide a space between a stimulus, somebody saying something, somebody doing something to you. There is a space between the stimulus and the response that you have. It provides you an opportunity. Even at the lowest level, a child tells you something, or there is something that child does, and you immediately react to try and do something to the child, it backfires. That psychology needs to be thought through. I'm sure that parenting today has become very much different than in my days. But still, sometimes we need to be mindful that to provide an opportunity to respond consciously and with wisdom. And this is a great example. It's like a relationship between a spark and a forest fire. Somebody says something, somebody does something, and you react instantly. There's a spark. And that spark can lead to, and we have seen that, one word, one angry word can destroy families. One angry word can destroy relationships. If only you wait, give some space when that spark happens, not to allow that spark to go into a fully fledged forest fire. And this is what emotional awareness can give you. A man comes to the Blessed Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was a very powerful tribal chief. He just converted to Islam. And he said, "O Prophet, teach me something. Tell me something." So the Prophet said, he knew his temperament. So the Blessed Prophet said, "Control your anger." So he said, "What else?" He said, "Control your anger." He said, "What else?" The Blessed Prophet said, "Control your anger." So man goes away, said, "Okay, I've been told to control my anger." Those were the days in Arabia where a camel walking across somebody else's field would actually create a fully fledged war between two tribes. This was the period of Jahiliyyah. And sure enough, as he got back to his tribe, the tribes were preparing for battle. What happened? Well, somebody damaged someone's cattle, and it is our pride to make sure that now we have a battle. So the man goes ready, becomes ready. That's the instinct. That's how it works. That's the norm. So he walks up, and in those days of the one-to-one combat, the two chiefs stand in front of each other and start the combat, and the war starts. Just as he lifts up his sword, he remembers the words of the Blessed Prophet. Control your anger. The spark that was created, he remembers the Blessed Prophet's words and says, "Control your anger." He stands back. He said, "I do not want to fight. If my camel or if my people have damaged something of yours, I'm willing to compensate. But let us not fight." This was unheard of in that society. Somebody apologizing and giving that I will compensate you. So the other tribal chief said, "I am no small man. If you are willing to compromise and compensate, I don't want your compensation. I'm going to forgive you." Do you see how the dynamics changed by one word that was imbibed by that man, by the tribal chief, to say, "Control your anger"? These are little things that we don't think about. That spark destroys families. It destroys our own mental well-being. And then we have issues with mental health. So, just to recap, integrity is to think, to feel, and to do. So we have ethical mindfulness, emotional awareness that we talked about, and now we have behavior and actions. Empathy is something that we need to understand. This is what you do. And I love that quote. It says, people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. It's all about caring. It's all about empathy. And when you say that I feel your pain, I'm trying to again get the pictures up for some reason. So it's playing up. Yeah, I'm not getting the graphics that I need, but never mind. I'll try and describe to you. If you don't get a picture, you can paint a picture. You can improvise. Have you ever felt or seen that someone's hand or someone's finger was stuck in a doorway? Even thinking about it or seeing about it gives you a feeling, and you flinch. Well, nothing touched you. Why did you flinch? That is empathy. Empathy actually means that you feel the pain of the other person. And there's a scientific reason for it. There are what they call mirror neurons in our brains. And I said the other day that there's energy that exudes. That if people are close enough, that the energy also is exchanged. This is not a myth. And the mirror neurons, as the scientists tell us, have some level. And it's also very, very famous. If anybody has worked in a pediatrics ward, will know that if one baby cries, especially newborn babies, other babies start crying. This is very true. This is empathy. This is the fitra of empathy that is coming through. So empathy is, as I say, seeing with the eye of the other, because this is to make sure that we complete the circle of integrity. Empathy is listening with the ears of another, and empathy is feeling with the heart of another. Well, as a nutritionist, let me warn you, do not eat with the stomach of another, you'll get into trouble. But feeling with the heart of another, listening with the ears of another, and seeing with the eyes of another is what we call empathy. And yes, we can now get a picture. You had this boy on the street corner with a little sign, and he says, "I'm blind, please help me." And people would pass by, and maybe one person might just drop a coin and move away. And he wasn't collecting much. Somebody else passes. He sees the signs, reads the sign, "I'm blind, please help." And he turns the sign over, writes something on it, and goes away. Pretty soon, as people were passing by, the pennies started dropping very quickly. And the blind boy could not understand what happened. But he had, very sharp ears. When the man was walking back, he knew that was the man. When Allah takes one faculty away from us, He gives us other faculties which become very strong. And the boy perceived the man coming back. And he said, "What did you do?" People suddenly started putting coins at a much faster rate than I've ever seen. He said, "I didn't do anything. All I did was write that. I wrote, 'It's a beautiful day and I can't see.'" It was the empathy to say that I have the blessings of sight, he cannot see, I must do something for him. The message, a simple message, "It's a beautiful day and I can't see," completely turned around the entire transaction, the entire equation, and the boy got far more support than he would have. Why? Again, this was the idea of empathy, where we move on. So let me share something with you, again, to sometimes lighten the dose of some of the heavy things that we try and serve you here. Difference between sympathy and empathy. An optimist was walking by and he sees that there was a man in a pit. He had fallen in a pit. So he looks at him. He's an optimist. He said, "Yeah, you've fallen into the pit, but things could have been worse." A pessimist passes by and he says, "Well, things get even worse." A philosopher passes by and he said, "You only think you are in a pit." A self-pitying person passes by and he said, "You have seen nothing until you've seen my pit." This is how we operate. And a news reporter passes by and said, "Can I have an exclusive story?" Each one wanting something. And a politician, of course, said, "I'll do something about this," of course, after the elections. That is sympathy. You pass by and you do something. Question is, what will you do? Because you are an empathetic person and you realize he does not need a lecture on optimism or pessimism, does not want to give you a story. All he wants to do is get a hand to get out of the pit. And that really is the bottom line, that you give him a hand and he gets out of the pit. This is empathy, that you know what he wants but the important thing is you don't go down in the pit with him. Sometimes in the process of empathy, you get so involved being so empathetic that you disturb your own mental balance because you have feeling their pain so much, you internalize the pain. And this is something that psychology teaches us, that you don't go into the pit with him. You give him a hand to pull him out of the pit so that you're helping somebody. So, empathy is more than just transactional. Empathy is a way that we establish human connections, and without it, relationships between people would just be devoid of any emotional connections. This is empathy. Truly, if this world had more empathy, if we had more empathy, the wars that we have would not happen, because you would feel the pain of the other to say, if I impose something on someone else, what will their pain be? If I was empathetic. And as far as, again, integrity is concerned, the last one that we want to go to after empathy is compassion. This is the last formula when we try and bring integrity into something like this. Sometimes compassion is confused with empathy. Compassion is really a gateway towards empathy is really a gateway to get into compassion and to be compassionate. And this is something that needs to be learned. Inshallah, we will continue with the components of compassion, because I'm going to take another 15 minutes and our time is pretty much very close to the time where we need to be. But here is a scenario to contemplate, and I want you to leave you with this. You see somebody on the floor. What do? Do you ignore him and walk away in fear, saying, I don't want to get involved? Or say, you look at him with pity and move away? You ask yourself, does he really need help? Do you think he needs help? Or say to yourself, well, I hope somebody else will help him soon. That's not compassion. You say to yourself, maybe if that someone was me, I would like some help. And that gives you a basis that you say to yourself, I will help this person. This is compassion. So, we will inshallah continue tomorrow to say, why is compassion good for us? Compassion is not just giving. Compassion gives you much more than what you give. And this is something that we need to understand and move with. Inshallah, we will talk again about compassion and try and finish this subject that we have begun over a period of time. Tonight, Mu'mineen, we gather, and it is the 7th of Muharram. 7th of Muharram is a day when history tells us that water was stopped in the Khaymah of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And that's something to imagine, that on the hot sands of Karbala, there were children. There was a 6-month-old baby. Yes, there may have been some water. Can you imagine the adults partaking of any water, saving it for the children? So for 3 days, there was no water. And this is a night when we remember also one of the valiant warriors in Karbala. You know, on the eve of Ashura, Imam Hussain al-Islam had gathered all his companions, and he was talking to them that you will go to war, and so will do this. And a young man, the son of Imam Hassan al-Islam, Qasim bin Hassan, goes to Imam and said, oh uncle, will I also get an opportunity to sacrifice myself? Mu'mineen, Imam embraces Janabi Qasim and asks him a question. That question and the answer to that question, Mu'mineen, is to be written with golden letters in the history of Islam. Imam asks and says, oh my child, oh my nephew, how do you find death? This young man says that I will find death sweeter than honey. This indeed was the spirit at Karbala when he gave that answer to Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Mu'mineen, final farewell of Janab Qasim was a painful one. As he made himself ready for the battle on the day of Ashur, and he goes to Imam alayhi salam for the final farewell. Imam hugs Janab Qasim close to his bosom, and both stood there for a while contemplating. And ultimately, Imam allows Janab Qasim to go into battle. And Janab Qasim walks into the battlefront and says, I am the son of Al-Hasan. If you are unaware, the grandson of the messenger, the chosen, the trusted, he was actually reminding people as to who these people are fighting. Mu'mineen, Humayd ibn Muslim, who was one of the reporters there, describes the scene thus. And he says a young boy comes out from the tents of Al-Hussein and approaches the battlefield. His face was as he rides the first splinter of the new moon. He had a sword in his hand and was wearing a long shirt. As Qasim ibn Hassan was fighting with the soldiers, he continued to fight valiantly. For how long could a thirsty young man fight? As Qasim continued to fight, one of the enemies, called Amr, actually sneaks behind him and strikes him on the head with a sword. Qasim's head splits open as he fell from his mount, and his blessed face on the sands of Karbala, and he cries out, "Oh uncle, come to my aid." And Imam was standing watching the nephew. No sooner had Qasim cried out to him than the Imam, descending like an eagle upon a prey, launched an attack, tearing through the ranks of the enemies. What happened then is undescribable. He writes that the horses collided and Amr fell, and the horses galloped over the body of Janab Qasim and was trampled to death with the hooves. And when they finally managed to reach Janab Qasim, what does Imam Hussain see? That Janab Qasim was not in one piece. The horses had trodden on him and torn his body to pieces. Imagine the feelings of the uncle, his brother's son, lying there trampled into pieces. Mu'mineen, suffice it to say, it is very hard that Imam puts his cheek on the torn chest of Qasim, crying and lamenting, and said, oh child, it is unbearable that you call out to your old uncle and I could not come to your help. And when I did, it was to no avail. I mean, how could Imam Hussain alayhi salam carry that body? How would have been able to carry the torn body of this young man? Hazrat Abbas comes, and between the two of them, they take the body and they place the body on the ground near the tents. And Imam said, oh my nephew, persevere. Oh my child, have patience. By Allah, you will not see any other grief after this day. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، يا حسين بن علي الشهيد بكربلاء، السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباكر، السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق، السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر الكاظم، السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى الرضا، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الجواد التكي، السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد الهادي النكي. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا حجة بن الحسن القائم المنتظر المهدي يا صاحب العصر والزمان. أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Already the workshops were live, but they are available online for you to see.
Okay, so what do we got to do?
I will bring you the link tomorrow.
Okay, so I'm not sure if I'm coming, but I got to go out to the
Okay, I need to rush because I have a Zoom session that's going on.
You got my card? You got my card?
Yes, I will. Okay. Or if you're coming day after, it's open.
Okay, cool.
So whenever you come, I will.
And one more question.
Sure.
Like I told you, I deal with prisoners. Can prisoners get on?
Yes, anybody with internet connection.
Okay,
get on. Absolutely. Good. What's your name? Zain. He's over. I need to rush because I'm late today for.
They started here. Goes on through 23. I don't know how far. I'll get you home. I'm not sure what you got in the day. No, I was I took the train and I'm not sure how much you know. I'm not sure if it's going to be there, but I go out to Rhode Island, I think about just staying out in Rhode Island, you know what I'm saying, and going to the Majlis. He said it's very good. Well, it's true. So we can stay out.
So here, VMix.
Oh, I was on the OBS studio.
And